Hello everybody, welcome to the Royal Bengal Tea House podcast. আপনারা যারা আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানটি শুনছেন সবাইকে জানাই সাদর সম্ভাষণ. I'm Ifti Chaudhary. I'm an artist, event organizer and producer based out of New York City. Royal Bengal Tea House is a community of creatives. We have been bringing people together, breaking walls and building bridges with our events since 2014. In this podcast, we will be exploring our identity as Bengalis through conversations on cultures, art, and spirituality. Today's episode is about the mystical state of Oaxaca, Mexico. The name Oaxaca, spelled O-A-X-A-C-A, originated from the Nahuatl language. Let me tell you a little bit about the Nahuatl language. It was the language of the Aztec people. And because of the language movement of 1952, we as Bengalis should pay special attention to the pronunciation of native words. It's spelled N-A-H-U-A-T and then L at the end. I struggled a little bit with the T and the L, but because we have a similar thing in Bengali called Juktakhor, I kind of got a hang of it. In Bengali, Juktakhor is the letter created from combining two or more consonants. For example, Jukto, which in Bengali means combined, we have K and T put together. Then there is Lingo, which has N and G put together. And then there is Pushpo, which has S and P put together. With Nahuatl, the T and the L has a similar sound, but the L has like a sh sound at the end and it's almost silent. So I think I got it right. It's pronounced Nahuatl. What's interesting about Oaxaca is that they have very vibrant indigenous Mexican traditions. One of them, which is very popular, is the Dia de los Muertos festival at the end of October. More on this at a different time. But today, we would like to tell you about a small beach town located in the state of Oaxaca of Mexico on the Pacific coast called Puerto Escondido. Puerto in Spanish means port, and Escondido means hidden. Is the hidden port. The Nahuatl name for this town, however, is Zicatela. When I saw Zicatela on the signs after landing at the airport, I was like, wait a minute, this sounds so much like Jigatola, which is a neighborhood in Dhaka. Zicatela, or Puerto Escondido, is a quaint beach town with a relaxing vibe, renowned for its huge ocean waves. So they host a lot of surfing competitions, and surfers from around the world come here for enjoying the waves. Best way to get around Puerto Escondido is on a scooter. So I rented a scooter, and as soon as I had some mobility, I went exploring. I noticed the mango trees were full of mangoes. It was mango season in Oaxaca. The mangoes in Oaxaca, or in Puerto Escondido, that I tried were some of the best I've ever had in Latin America. They have this small yellow variety which is called Ataulfo, named after the inventor Ataulfo Morales Gordillo. And then there's this another variety that's also very delicious. It's more fibrous and it's larger in size. It's usually red and green kind of in color. It's called the Tommy. As I was exploring Puerto Escondido, I heard about this phantom figure who has traveled the world, wrote a book about it, and finally settled in Puerto Escondido. And not only that, he's like a musician and organizes an open mic that everybody was raving about. So I had to go and check it out. And apparently, every Thursday night at a beach food court, and you can actually hear the ocean waves crashing, and everybody gathers together under this big tree, and there's an open mic organized by this American guy named Travis King. So today, we're really lucky to have him join us in our podcast.
Yep.
And welcome, Travis.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Ifti.
Thank you for joining us, and really, really looking forward to having a conversation about, your book, your life story, and then, how did you end up here in Puerto Escondido?
Awesome, man. Yeah, I love talking about the book and my travels, and Puerto is like some of my favorite subjects. So let's talk about it, man.
Yeah, cool. So where were you born? You're American.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I grew up I was born in Minneapolis, but I don't remember it. We moved when I was really young, but I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. and basically left at some point in my 20s. I went back and got a master's degree at Marquette, and that's sort of how the book I wrote starts. It's just like finishing that degree and then just deciding like now is the moment where sort of like I saw the window open in my life and in the universe to go kind of like take a leap of faith and go abroad for a bit. I thought that at that moment it was going to be like a 4 or 5 month trip, and that I would return home and like use the master's degree I just got to like start my career in the nonprofit industry. But here we are over 10 years later, and yeah, I found a different path that I ended up on basically.
That's awesome. So you left Wisconsin, and what was your first trip? Where did you go?
So yeah, I left. People were like asking me like, "What are you doing after grad school?" And I just started telling people I'm going to South America. So I took a flight basically into Colombia, went down through Colombia, through Ecuador, through Peru and Bolivia, and I like made a travel family along the way. It's the first section of the book. My book I wrote is broken up into 4 sections. So South America is that first sort of quarter of the book, and it was a really epic, life-changing trip. Like we basically, a bunch of us became like a really close-knit travel family. I fell in love with this Australian girl named Lisa, and we just had all these crazy adventures together. So then when I flew home for the holidays to see my family around Christmas, I kind of told everybody right away, like, that was not enough, like that, like, I, was sowing some of my travel oats, but like there was many more. And I just really felt like, I felt like good at it, and I felt like the world like welcomed me, and I felt like I was figuring out who I was, and I don't know, just gaining all these like life skills and like gaining like a different type of education, like I did a 2 years master's degree program, but honestly I feel like I learned more just about like myself and how the world works and life in those 4 months in South America than I did in the 2 year grad program. So I was like, I'm not done, and I just felt like I wanted to keep pushing myself to make the adventure continue on.
Let's talk a little bit about your book, right? So you said that there are 4 different sections, and what inspired you to write the book?
So yeah, I don't know, like the book is it's a labor of love. I spent like 4 years on it, and basically it's like, I think at some point if you travel enough, you got people in your life that'll start to be like, when are you gonna write your book? As interesting version of a compliment, sort of just be like, oh, you've been like on all these adventures. But that seed sort of got planted, and like I've always fancied myself a pretty good writer, like even going through school and grad school, like all my professors and everything, that was always the one thing that I knew kind of academically I was good at, was just writing and being able to tell a story in a sense. And then with the travels, like I just was also like collecting these pretty wild travel stories. You can read the back of my book and see sort of a little taste of some of those, but basically just lived all these different versions of life in different parts of the world. And so at some point I was like, man, maybe this is a book. But I remember even like I just started writing, and well then actually the impetus that made me actually start it was when I was working for this travel company, Remote Year. I was leading these retreats. I led a retreat about goal setting, and this friend of mine, Marina, she led us through a goal setting like workshop where at some point you had to say out loud to the group like what you're going to try to get done in the next month, and you had to write out like where you see yourself a year from now. So it's kind of like a visioning exercise. And in that year out vision, I put that like I'd be working on a book, and then like when she made us set a goal for the next month, I had that goal be write 1 chapter worth reading, and I said it out loud to this group of 15 people. And I think there's some sort of magic to that too. Like if you say something out loud, it's just like, I'm not a religious person, but it's like you're saying it to God, or you're saying it like into the universe, and then it's like you for me, I'm just somebody that will hold myself accountable. So after I said that to the group, I just felt like it was out there, and I couldn't take it back. So I a week later, I remember walking to the workspace in Croatia where I was, and wrote the first sentence of the book. And I remember like looking at it and be like, are you going to be a book? And like, this is just like 12 words or whatever. But every book starts with the first 12 words, and it's like anything. Any house gets built with 1 brick being the first brick, and it's like that it felt like intimidating and daunting in the beginning, but I just kept writing, and I was working full time for the travel company during the first years of writing the first draft, but I just kind of had a goal of working on it a little bit at least every week, and it just kept coming along. And yeah, at the end it was like 120,000 words and 333 pages and like a really full book. So.
And the book is available. If our audience wanted to purchase the book, where would they be? able to find it?
So it's on Amazon. I mean, I sell it here, like in Puerto, in my little beach town. I like ship boxes of 100 of them to me, and I have it for sale at the cafes here. But the hard copy, like the paperback, or the hard copy, like the hardcover, those ship to like I think 10 or 12 countries or something. And then it's obviously also on Kindle. That was like the first version actually that I created. So that goes to anywhere in the world.
So you mentioned Croatia, right? So what made you go from South America to what was the next stop?
So I'll give you like the quick tour. If you open the table of contents in the book's broken up into countries. So the first section is South America. That's those countries I mentioned. Then the next section was actually North America, which includes Mexico, where I live now. It's like Mexico, Guatemala, down to Utila. I did my dive masters on Utila. So for any divers out there, there's a whole big section about like going through open water and advance all the way through to dive master. I really loved that, my time on that island. Then there I actually met some people that were doing the seasonal thing where they would go to Alaska and like try to kill it for the summer and like make 10 or 15K fishing and then spend that money traveling the world and go back to Alaska. There's people that kind of have that rhythm in their life. And I was Utila, like, that could be cool.
Yeah, Utila is actually where I went to get my open water.
Nice, yeah.
Me and my buddy James, I think it was 2014, we just, decided to go to Utila, heard about this beautiful island off the coast of Honduras, and, I don't know, we just got talked into getting open water.
Yeah.
It was one of the best decisions of our lives. Like, I love scuba diving.
I got talked into my dive master, too. Like, I went there thinking I'm going to get my open water, and then this, like, school that I did my open water with was like, listen, we like having you around. We'll give you this offer. It'll give you your advanced, your dive rescue, and your dive master. And I was like... And it was just like so cheap that I was like, all right, I'd be like an idiot not to take this deal. And then I like stayed for 5 months on the island and had a great time. And then I met these guys that were doing the Alaska thing. So I went to Alaska next, worked for a season, met this girl, Sunny. We went to Hawaii together. Then I had always had this idea of wanting to go to Australia because I was meant to go as an undergrad as like a study abroad thing, but I tore my ACL playing soccer and whatever, it just never happened. So Australia had always been in my mind. And basically, there's a lot of countries that you can do a work exchange thing with. If you're somebody out there listening, thinking about like ways to travel and how you might get out there, even if you don't have, like, I just don't think money is a great excuse for not traveling, right? Like, there's so many ways that you can go into the world. It's more, I think, about being brave if you're being truly honest with yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And you can apply for like a work exchange before you turn 31 in a bunch of countries like Ireland, Australia. I think there's New Zealand. There's a bunch of others, but I wanted to do this Australian work visa thing before I turned 31. I think I was like 30 at the time, basically. So I got my work visa, went to Australia for a year, and then I actually worked that whole year. I spent part of the time in Melbourne, part of the time in Byron Bay, and the second half of the trip was Byron Bay, and I just fell in love with that place and like had really like an amazing community, really amazing jobs that I loved. So when I went home, there was also like a girl involved in this part. You have to read the book to get the whole story, but basically it just didn't work out when I went home. So I just I emailed all of my bosses in Australia. I was like, hey, if I come back, can I still work even if I don't have the correct visa? And they were all just like, yeah, sure, we'll pay you cash. Like, no worries, we love having you on the team. So I immediately got back to Australia, stayed for 6 months, then got deported. I got in trouble, so I got like forcibly removed from the country. And I had gone to Asia to visit my buddy Pat, one of my best friends, for like a week, and just to like see him because he was close by, like he was in the world. I felt like he was close enough where I should go see my boy. But then on the way back in, that's when they caught me and kicked me out. But so then they basically they blamed the airline somehow. So then they flew me back to Malaysia where I'd flown in from, and I just ended up in Malaysia like as a backpacker again, and my life in Australia was like abruptly cut short kind of thing. But then I had a great, like the fourth section of the book is Southeast Asia, and I got to run all over Southeast Asia with like basically all the money I was able to make in Australia, which lasted me a while. But to like the tension that I'm building through the whole book is basically, like family and people being like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you have a master's degree. Why are you doing this? Instead of like a real career, a real job, or all the things that baby boomers tell us are the most important things in life. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't want to. I wanted to live my path and like find my own way. And so there's that tension. And there's also just like the actual financial tension of like traveling costs money. And I was like always running out of money. But obviously in Australia, I worked a bit. In Alaska, I worked a bit. In Hawaii, I worked a bit. I was like always trying to get money back up. But going through Asia, I was over the age of 31, so all the work exchange programs were kind of out of reach for me, or I had aged myself out of those opportunities. So I was like, oh, what do I do next? And that's when I started applying for different like jobs in the travel industry, because I was like, I had experience group leading growing up because I used to work with kids for a long time and do it like I was a camp counselor essentially, but did a lot of group leading. And then all of a sudden I had all this travel experience and I felt like really confident with the, just like bopping around the world. So I started applying for travel jobs, and basically without giving too many spoilers for the end of the book, I got a really great job in the travel industry. And that's how I ended up in Europe. Back to your original question, like I'd skipped the more expensive parts of the world on my solo adventures because money was a real issue for me, or just like, being able to afford the next flight and the next bed in a hostel or whatever. So I skipped Europe altogether for all those years. But then, when I was at Remote Year, I ended up being the director of community for Remote Year, this really amazing, like one of the first basically travel companies for digital nomads targeted at that group. And I led one of their early programs. I led the third ever Remote Year program around the world for a year, like taking 70 adults to 12 countries around the world for a whole year. It was a super heavy job.
And what year was this? This is way before the pandemic.
That would have been like 2015, 16, that year that I was first working for Remote Year. And then I stayed on basically as the director of community until the pandemic. And then one day in early 2020, we all got fired, like 120 of us, like on the same day. It was like, all right, makes sense. I guess nobody can travel anymore, and like we're a travel company, so. And actually now they recently relaunched the company after it was acquired by Selena, like the hostel brand that we have here, one of those here in Puerto even.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about your love for music, right? So I've heard you perform, and I was instantly taken. You play the guitar and you sing, right? Do you write your own songs?
Yeah. So my first instrument was drums. So it's still like at open mic, like I always go and sit on the drums to give Jesus, our house drummer, like a little bit of a break here and there, because I just love like making a pocket on the drums through like either somebody rapping or whatever, just to create that vibe. But then I like to sing. I really love singing, and like way back at the summer camp, like I mentioned summer camp, in the summer camp days I used to play like djembe with two of my buddies that both played like guitar and banjo, but I was kind of the lead singer for that little trio, even though I was playing drums. But not everybody can be Phil Collins, so I was like, I gotta figure out how to play an instrument that's more that works better with singing kind of. So that's where I started playing guitar back in my like early 20s. But I still like, I don't know, I know like I play the guitar like a drummer. Like I'm like, if somebody's like solo, I'm like no. Like I'm a rhythm guitar player. I can play really good rhythms because of the drumming background. But and then I got more into guitar since moving to Puerto. Like I started taking it a little more seriously and more into like my like what a show would be if I was going to play a 2-hour set, like what songs are involved in that. And then like 6-7 months ago I started writing again, and like writing music again. I always actually make this joke on the microphone, like for all those years traveling, I had like a guitar with me. I was like one of those guys that at the hostel I could like entertain my new group of friends playing my little acoustic guitar and playing fun covers. And back when I lived in New Orleans, when I first started open micing, I had written like a handful of songs, and I think some of them like held up, over time, and they were still pretty good. So every now and then if I said like, hey, can I play you guys a song I wrote? Everybody in that moment always responds the way you'd hope. They're like, yeah, of course. But then like 10 seconds into that, you can just feel like you lost the room, because it's like, they don't know the song, they don't know the girl that you're singing about who made you sad, they don't give a shit, and at the end they're just, they may not say it like this, but you can feel it's like, dude, just get back to Wonderwall, dude, like play the hits, man. So like I just kind of gave up on writing, actually. Like I don't know, because that experience, like that feeling happened so often when I was traveling that I was like, all right, man, I'll just learn 100 covers and be the guy that can like make a crew have a good night drinking beers around a fire or whatever. And that's fun. It's like a really great thing to know how to play a lot of covers like in your own style or in a nice way, which is something I still am doing. But then I started writing. So like the songs I've been writing are kind of more, I think I finally actually have something to say too, if I'm being honest. Like, all of the first songs I wrote when I was in my 20s were about like heartbreak and girls, and I like basically hadn't experienced that much. So like if I was going to think about like writing a song with like actual meaning, like I don't know, there wasn't much beyond heartbreak and love that I had anything to say about. So now I'm like, most of the songs I'm writing about now are like about my life here in Puerto, about like bucking all the pressure that the baby boomers have given all of us millennials growing up, of like following in their footsteps, like songs about like just following your own path. One of the songs I wrote is called Over the Moon, which is about like taking my moonshot, which was basically me spending all of my life savings on a piece of land here in La Punta in Puerto, that I'm like chasing this project and basically just trying to chase my own dream of opening my own place in my favorite place in the world, and trying to make a successful business out of that. And so like I think I've actually lived enough, and I've like tried enough weird things and have these like interesting perspectives that I've kind of earned over all these travels and all these years and all these like different ups and downs. So now I think, you know, when I go to write a song, I kind of have something more to say.
Yeah. So you mentioned that Puerto Escondido is your favorite place in the world, and you've been to so many different places in the world, all around the world. You've been to Europe, you've been to Southeast Asia, Australia, North America, South America. Why did you choose Puerto Escondido?
So that's a great question. I really love it, man. There's something about Oaxaca as a state that I think is just really like authentic and, you know, just really not pretentious. Like I don't know. There's something really just sort of magic about Oaxaca that I really love. And like La Punta specifically, the neighborhood that I bought the piece of land in that I, you know, spent my life savings on. I just really love the neighborhood of La Punta. Somebody once described it to me as like a one open air hostel. It's like everybody's kind of in the same vibe, like, but it's all, you know, it's just got this kind of magical feeling. And I mentioned Byron earlier. Like, I went back to Byron Bay working illegally because I loved Byron Bay. And I kind of try to explain in the book, like, what I loved about Byron Bay so much. But it's really like this sense of community where if I walked from like where I was staying to like the grocery store to like get some more bananas and milk or something, I would say hi to 10 people on the way. And then on the way home, I would say hi to a different 10 people. Mm-hmm. And just like, you know, giving out like slapdaps, like that surfer town greeting to everybody that you walk past. And that same thing definitely happens in Puerto. Like, I used to live on the main street of La Punta on the second story, and I always tell people if I was out there to like smoke a joint or drink a cup of coffee, like I couldn't not say hi to 15 people before that cup of coffee was finished. And I like living somewhere like that. I feel like I can, if it gets a little too overwhelming sometimes, I can find respite. You know, like I can just go down the coast and like find an empty beach or sit under a tree and get alone. But I think if your life feels alone, it's harder to manufacture community and connectedness. So I like setting myself into a setting that's like very connected, and like I can be as much a part of that as I want to be. And then if I need to pull back because I feel my energy is a little low, or like I need some alone time, I could easily get that, right? Like, it's easier to get that. You can just like lock the doors of your house and stay inside your house if you want to be alone. Mm-hmm. But for me to like see my friends, like for example, my sister was just visiting. I didn't make any plans for like my closest friends in Puerto to like meet my sister, really. I just was like, they'll meet her. Like, I'll go to like eat food and walk around Puerto, and my friends will probably meet my sister just because we live in such a small little like connected beach town. And, you know, like, went and got tacos on Monday, and she met like Nico and Gigi and Jordan and like all these people that I'm like tight with without me having to text them or like make a plan. And I just like love living somewhere where it's just connected, you know, like it's not hard to, I don't know, make social things happen or to feel like you're with your people or you're in community, because the community here is really close. So I don't know, I love that about Puerto, really.
Incredible. So let's, you know, you mentioned community, and of course community is one of the cornerstones of Royal Bengal Tea House. We have communities. We started in New York City to build a community. Now our community has expanded beyond New York, beyond United States, beyond Latin America.
That's awesome.
Everywhere we go, we connect with musicians and organizers like yourself.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we have these jam sessions every month or every 3 months in New York. And the whole concept of bringing people together through music, I found the same kind of energy when I attended your open mic. So if you could tell me a little bit about the open mic. How did the open mic come about?
Yeah, and actually it just made me think of like the other, so like, you know, I mentioned what I love about Puerto. The other thing I love about Puerto most is that it feels like any idea you have or anything you want to start will be supported by that community, and like you can just try anything. You know, like I started an environmental organization called Sostenible PE that's like now one of the most like kind of impactful, sustainable like mindset organizations that we have in Puerto. And it's just something I started trying to do because I was like, I want to help. I love this place. And again, like open mic was kind of the same, right? It's like I used to host an open mic in Australia back in Byron Bay actually, and I played open mics in like 30 or 40 countries around the world. So it's just a style of like, I just like making a stage and allowing people to perform. I just feel like a lot of people have gifts and talents to share. And like, you know, now I play these like 2-hour sets of music a couple times a week, and it's part of how I pay my rent and everything. But getting like from knowing, you know, your first 2 or 3 songs to having a 2-hour set of music, there's a huge gap between there. And all the people that are like somewhere in that gap before you get like a full 2-hour set kind of in your head memorized, and you're able to do that for a crowd. what are the opportunities for the people that don't quite have all of that music and like all of that stuff memorized or whatever. So I just love open mics for that format because there's so many people that have stuff to share. So I just really wanted to, like when I got here, I remember right away like noticing that there wasn't like an already well-established open mic, and it's like I've like hosted open mics in the past. I love being a host. I love making a stage. I think honestly even more than like drumming or singing or playing guitar, like my best thing with music is like hosting, like making a stage, being somebody that brings the music community together in Puerto and like squeezes the juice of the community and makes magical stuff happen on Thursday nights at open mic. Because I just love it, man. I love like when it gets a little messy and there's like different rappers waiting for the microphone and creating a cipher, and you got like somebody on guitar and bass and drums that don't necessarily always play music together, so they're just like kind of looking at each other and trying to find it. And yeah, it's just it can be pretty magical. And I also think like just the level of talent that we have here. Something too about the way open mic's grown is like most Thursdays are like at least 150, sometimes 200, 250 people in high season. So it's a really big event, and I think people have a funny misconception of what open mic is, or maybe a true conception in certain places, but like I think people when they picture open mic, they picture like a dark, sad bar with like one bad musician playing to like 8 drunk people. But like when you play open mic in Punta Origen here in La Punta, it's like nobody really ever gets up that's like bad. Or like sometimes I'll encourage people to be like, come on, play, like do your first song. So then it's like this feeling of like somebody performing for their first time in public, and even if they're not super amazing, you can feel that they're like putting themselves out there, they're having a vulnerable moment in a very public setting. So the crowd goes fucking wild for those people anyway. And then the other people that are a little more established, like they're playing their best few songs, they're bringing it because there's 200 people in front of them, and it usually goes off incredibly well. Like there's very few like, I don't know, underwhelming performances at open mic. It usually just feels like, fuck yeah. And then like the list runs and there's 20 people on the list and you never know what's going to happen. You get, a beatboxer followed by like somebody doing reggaeton, followed by somebody like an opera singer once. Like we get people that do all different flavors and styles of music and art, and it just makes for like a really incredible night. And yeah, we've been doing the show for over 2 years now, and it's crazy to think back like how many cool people and amazing performances we've had at open mic. And I think that's why the community still shows out for it, because it's like you actually never know what's going to happen. I'm going to be there hosting it. The house band's going to be there. You can kind of predict some of those elements, but like in terms of like how the show's going to go, what those 20 musicians are going to do, nobody knows, including me. So that's like kind of why it has this magical feeling to it.
Absolutely. No, I as soon as I found out about the open mic, I was looking forward to attending the next one. That was like the highlight of my week. And I could completely agree with you. The amount of talent in this town.
Yeah.
All the participants that come to this open mic, and I've seen rappers and amazing guitarists and drummers. Incredible group of musicians who take part in this open mic. We organize events in New York City with the Royal Bengal Tea House community, and sometimes you don't know what you're gonna get. Yeah. Any interesting stories that you'd like to share with our audience from the open mics?
Yeah,
that you've
of course,
hosted?
Man, of course. Oh man, we had one recently where this girl was like, "I'm a fire spinner. Can I spin fire?" And we've had that happen a few times. So I was like excited. I was like, "Yeah, I'll pick a good musician for you to spin for." Like this guy Carl Kane, who really shreds a guitar. I was like, maybe when Carl goes up, I know he's gonna shred high energy, something you can like spin fire to. So she was like, "Yeah." And I told her, "Carl's up next. Like, get your stuff ready." I turn around and literally like, she almost burnt down Punta Origen. Like she somehow like lost control of her gasoline container, and it was like on the sand, like on a tree. So like we had to get a fire extinguisher out, and like I could tell the people, like the audience was like, "Is this part of it?" I was like, "This is not part of the show. We're like accidentally burning down this venue." Like, but I mean, we got it under control and everything was all good, and she was really apologetic. But I was like, "I thought you were like a pro. You looked professional." So that was crazy. There was another night too that like two of like, literally, I'm not even trying to exaggerate, like 2 of like the 10 best beatboxers in the whole world happened to be in Puerto, and one of them was like, I just won like an international beatboxing competition, and then he recognized his other guy, and he's like, that guy, I've competed against him, and that guy came over and he was like, yeah, I'm like one of Germany's best beatboxers. So these guys did like a microphone pass beatbox thing to close the show down. This is like back at the first venue that we had open mic, but that night was just so wild, because if you see somebody who's world class at anything, it's cool, but beatboxing is also just like this mysterious kind of thing where I'm like, how are you making those like 6 different tracks coming out of your mouth? Like you're doing like a bass, a melody, a beat, like all the fucking all the different drums that make up a drum set basically are coming out of your mouth, plus like a bass guitar, plus like a keyboard, are all somehow coming out of your mouth. So yeah, that night was really interesting. We get all types of stuff. One of my favorite stories actually is from open mic is this woman Faith David, who's become a good friend of mine. She's from New York actually, and she came down, started doing open mic. She's got this super soulful voice. She's like, just got this like beautiful energy to her too. She started performing at open mic and like, was really like bringing the house down. And like at some point, like her second, third, fourth open mic, like people were like excited. You can tell like I started putting her later on the list to like help kind of close the show in a really powerful way. And she was absolutely killing it. And then basically, long story short, she like lives in Puerto now, like changed her whole life. She moved from New York. She plays music like 3 or 4 times a week with a few different bands in town. And she's basically, I think she's still hung on to like part-time, her hours at her old job from New York. But she's now basically like a professional singer who lives in Puerto Escondido because open mic, I don't know, gave her this opportunity to try it. And she really felt like she really does have it though. Like she's got the kind of voice that she could like win a talent competition.
I've seen Faith perform,
she's
and
incredible.
I was mesmerized. Like she has such a strong voice.
Yeah.
It was really cool. I had the opportunity to meet her, walk over to her, and talk to her, and she was super nice.
She's really nice, man. Yeah.
Obviously, this is home now. You built a beautiful community of musicians and friends. What's the outlook like?
So yeah, like my day-to-day now is kind of funny. It's made up of a bunch of different things. Like I just, I study Spanish, I do music, I exercise, I write. Like I'm still trying to write. I have a Medium page and a Substack that I try to publish on like one thing once a week, so, sort of like that. But then the other main sort of project that I have going, and I have the sustainability organization that I help work on. I do stuff for that every week. But then the other main sort of like business thing, I guess, or like the future, like how I think I'm gonna retire essentially, or like have enough money to keep living, is the project that we bought the land for. It's called Sobre Luna. It's a co-living, co-working. Like I mentioned, I used to work for Remote Year, and my partner Maria, also we met working at Remote Year, so we both are like really have like deep inroads into the global digital nomad community. So we're like, what if we made something really cool specifically for that demographic in Puerto, in this neighborhood that we love so much. So basically that's what we've been working on since we got here. It's taken a while, like just to get it like all formalized, but like now it's under construction, and it's actually crazy. Like every day if I drive past the property, there's like 20 guys working, and yeah, we have this like beautiful architectural plan, and basically we're going to try to make this space that's got like a bunch of different aspects to it. Like there's going to be housing, all the way from like dorm beds to really nice like villas and hotel rooms, so like a huge range of different kind of like prices for different people that want different things. And then on the other kind of part of the property, there'll be a restaurant and a co-working office for 40 people. And then on another little section, there's a pool, and there's also going to be like a stage area because I want to be able to do open mic type things for that community that we're going to be growing there. And then yeah, my dream is like I'm gonna live there as well. So like my dream is like to wake up every day at Sobre Luna and like light the incense and pick the right playlist and like try to make that space feel pretty like special, and like make sure everybody that walks into that space feels seen, feels understood, feels part of it, and then just like make magical things happen, and like run a calendar of events for like wellness things, for professional development things, for social things. So like obviously yeah, like a lot of music and like storytelling and art and all that kind of stuff, but just a place where like if you come there you'll feel part of a community, and it'll be like really hard to not have a great day or a great week if you're staying with us at Sobre Luna. So yeah, the community thing is something I've always done, and I've always known I could do it pretty well, and it's going to be really exciting to be able to do it for our team that we're building and for our own project here in my favorite place.
That's incredible. So what about recording music? Do you look the songs that you've written, do you see yourself publishing an album?
I'm 39, I turned 40 in November, so I've been saying, like, this is again like one of those things, like you say something then you kind of feel like you have to follow through. So I've been telling people I want to get my first album done before I'm 40. I think it'll be like an EP. I basically have like 6 songs now that I've written in the last 6 months that I like. I've been trying to figure out where to record it here in Puerto. There's honestly not too many great options. Like my buddy Tam, who's great with music, he's a great songwriter. He was trying to start to build a little studio. I went to visit my other buddy Osab, who's a great rapper, to see if like maybe his studio space would work. But I don't know. I know it's like with my book, for example, I was like, I had the whole like worst year of the pandemic to edit it, and I reread every sentence in that book 20 times, and I just had this thing of like, if this might be the only book I'm ever going to put out in the world, so I want to be like damn sure it's as good as it can be, and I want to feel like really proud of it. I want to feel like excited for whatever future non-existent grandkid might read it to read it. I just wanted to make sure it was like its highest form, and that's how I feel about trying to get an album out too. It's like I could record like into GarageBand on my Mac and like put an album out next week, but I just really want it to be excellent. I want there to be a lot of my favorite musicians in Puerto behind it, like my buddy Sergio on violin and Julio on cajon and all these other musicians that I play with. So I'm just like trying to figure out how to make it good without spending Nashville money, and like just like do it in a really like good professional way without breaking the bank on it, because like I said, I'm not crushing it financially currently. I think in the future, hopefully once Sobre Luna opens, I'll look back at these years as like my sort of Spartan years where I was cooking black beans every week and just living in a super like chill, like low cost way and just getting kind of by, playing my guitar and writing some things and whatever else. But hopefully in the future I'll be a little less financially stressed or not have to think about it as much. But somewhere in the meantime, I hope I can figure out how to record this album as well. But yeah, I want to get it out there.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, with the Royal Bengal Tea House community.
Thanks, man.
We welcome you to come to New York City, and if you're ever there, please hit us up. We would love to have you at our jam session.
Yeah,
and
I love that too.
We wish you all the best with Sobre Luna and your album recording. And if you ever write a second book, we'll be the first ones to look it up.
Thanks, man.
So thank you so much.
I already have the outline going actually for the second book. I think it'll be about this time now. Like people from remote year are always like, "Are you going to write a book about remote year?" But honestly, a couple thousand people did remote year, so it's not like this super unique, one of a kind experience that like it was just whatever my journey. But I think this stretch of time in Puerto of like moving somewhere that you love and trying to start your own business and like chase this like dream, this section of my life actually does feel like unique and interesting enough to write a book about. So I started outlining it. So yeah, book 2 is on the way basically, if you're out there listening and curious.
Thank you so much. I'm very sure that a lot of the people who heard our episode today will be inspired by your stories to travel and to follow your dreams and to really pursue what you're passionate about. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please share our podcast with friends and family. Spread the word. Leave us a comment, and if you or anyone you know would like to be on one of our episodes, please hit us up. See you next time. আবার দেখা হবে। সবাইকে জানাচ্ছি আন্তরিক শুভেচ্ছা। আপনারা সবাই ভালো থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন।